Hey guys, it's Kosi. Quick disclaimer before we start. This video will be a little bit different compared to my other stuff, as I usually try to combine gameplay, humor and education alongside a good time for all of us to enjoy. Yet today, I need to rant, so don't mind me to just casually putting up a Mythic Plus run in the back while I talk to you for a hot minute. Also, I'm all for communicating and trading opinions, so let's all take a moment to be kind and respectful in the comment section. It's okay to disagree, no need to get rowdy, alrighty? I need to blow off some steam about the game that I really enjoy and I love playing, for the most part. And quite frankly, the game that I'm addicted to, cause otherwise, I would have ended this abusive relationship a long time ago. And yeah, don't bother with the just don't play it comments, not gonna happen. Mythic Plus right now, the way it is easily one of the worst, if not even the worst state it has ever been. However, you might be surprised with my reasoning, because I've seen those funny Mythic Plus sucks complaining videos and it's not that simple in my opinion. I would also like to give out suggestions later in the video for certain topics, so don't think I will just moan non-stop. But who am I to judge? I'm just your average Legion that found the most lightning about Mythic Plus ever since it got introduced in Legion. I never had the time to join coordinated or organized raid groups due to my working schedule, so Mythic Plus was my go-to content and it kept me entertained for so long that I eventually started to make a YouTube channel pretty much all about this part of retail WoW's late game. As someone who mainly packs keys, which means I rarely join pre-mid party or guilds, while also playing every role in the game today, I feel like I got a quite solid understanding on what's good, bad or just borderline garbage when it comes to the majority of the player base, which is the key range from 2 to 10. Yet not everything is bad or even worse, there are also some aspects of the way Mythic Plus works that I really enjoy and I hope to see in the future season. For example, I like the difficulty. I think the difficulty, when we not think about the loot for a second, is very enjoyable and in a good place, as it still feels quite nice to time a plus 10 key with a fully packed group. I mean hell, average casual gamers still didn't get to do a plus 10 key, and that's not because the gear is lacking, it's because they lack either motivation, skill or simply the time to put more effort in. The fact that there are some wild videos out there of 4-man parties carrying a 5th to a plus 10, keys without a healer or simply heavily undergeared players timing keys I never stepped foot in, it proves that it can't be that hard. I also like that there's an optional step further beyond the gear cap of plus 10, in which better or more determined players can let loose without having to deal with the seasonal affix. Which brings me to the third positive. I like the seasonal affixes. I like the changes to remove not only all annoying affixes in the game, but all affixes in general, while providing a new way to enjoy keys with certain minigames that will also give you a beneficial buff when you play correctly. However, there are two sides to the story, because part of the truth is that the current season affix also sucks major donkey balls. So what do I mean by that? The good thing is that the affixes all play differently. Some easier to manage, but some are just obnoxiously annoying and borderline bad designed, with an included punishment that could wipe your run in a heartbeat. For example, while not dealing with all the balls during Ascension, every mob just gets a bit more haste, which for the main part, only the tank has to deal with. Meaning, in a majority of times, even if you don't play the affix perfectly, it's manageable. However, if you don't collect all the moving balls during Oblivion, which frankly sometimes doesn't work as they spawn in the dumbest places imaginable, for example in the water during the final boss fight of Siege of Morales, they will increase every affected target's damage done by 10 damn %. And if you think about the incredible amount of party damage going out during a lot of trash packs or bosses, this is often not manageable as heal checks are usually quite tight itself. Again, speaking of packing, I know that in higher keys and coordinated keys, people use defensives, or at least they should. But on lower pack keys, people tend to not press anything that doesn't pop up a shiny damage number. Or, my favorite, which got me raging while I was playing a Resto Druid a few weeks ago, the Silent Death's Bargain Devour. In a normal scenario, you grab 1 or 2 extra dispels and deal with this without any problems whatsoever. In reality, either no one plays with a dispel or simply doesn't use them, as they need to spend a global for that. And the dumbest shout for that is, it's a healer affix. It's not, it's a party affix. Let's make sure we all do our part. The punishment of that is 10% healing for every mob or boss, for every dispel that didn't got dealt with. Such a stupid punishment. The second bad thing I want to mention is the lack of creativity when it comes to key levels. The game has been out for over 20 years. Things change. Don't expect players to play your game just because. Make them gain something for their effort. What I don't mean by that is handing out items, currency or any other kind of digital handjobs, but do it a little bit. When we are just taking the quote-unquote normal range of keys, being 2 to 10, 1/3 of those are useless. 3 out of 9 keys are simply just an increase in difficulty that not even the biggest WoW sweats and their fat uncles give the slightest of shits about. The laughable amount of rating you get from a +5 instead of a +4 simply won't cut it if you want to ensure a healthy ecosystem of players. So what do I mean when I say useless key levels? Let me show you. +2 is the entry level of Mythic Plus, or so to speak, Mythic 0 with a timer and the seasonal affix, which is good as this will be around in every key to come, so you want to get used to that quickly. +3 is just a slight increase in difficulty, but it will grant a hero item track in your vault. Meaning even when you're starting out, doing a +3 key over a +2 makes more sense, as you at least get a higher item in your weekly choice. +4 is also fine. With the addition of either Tyrannical or Fortified as an increase in difficulty, you also receive Rune Crest for your potential 619 item crafts or to simply upgrade already owned gear further. Great! +5 is ass. It's nothing. No extra reward, no extra crest, no extra vault. Just a wet handshake when timing it and maybe 4 extra score. It sucks. +6 is the same thing. Nothing new. It's like doing a +4 but more difficult. I just spent the triple amount of time in the LFG tool waiting for people to apply. That's the only difference. It's like purposely removing the wheels of a bobby car just to drag it over the street anyways. What's the point? Then we got +7, which adds hero item loot instead of champion. Fantastic. Hero is the highest farmable Mythic Plus loot and 7 is the lowest in which those drop. Good change for a key level. +8 now drops Gilded Crest after weeks of begging from the player base, which is the highest crafting material for your potential 636 items, or to upgrade the highest and best gear to the best version of themselves. Great, no complaints. +9 is ass again. Same as 8 but more difficult, no point in doing a 9 at all, unless it's your own key. And then we got +10, which greatly increases in difficulty as now both Tyrannical and Fortified are present, but you get rewarded with the highest possible item track in your vault for completing it. Fantastic! Making this a great challenge in order to potentially get a banger item in your weekly choice, unless you got the luck like I have, while also having potentially nail-biter dungeon runs with strangers that feel awesome if you finish them barely in time. Another thing that is just on a personal note, maybe you could make abilities that will one-shot you in +10 keys do the same in +4 keys already, even with a slightly overgeared item level. I feel like this would help players learn early on, because I'm certain that dying to a one-shot in one of your first keys will stick with you quicker than losing 90% of your HP, not pressing a defensive and just having the healer to deal with it. Also, I'm yet to understand the following. Why you wanted to make Mythic Plus more difficult, the only thing you did was no changes for DPS while making all the changes for tanks and healer. Mobs hit harder, tanks got squishier, selfie got nerfed, and what did you think will happen? Of course DPS demand bigger and more efficient pulls, while tanks need their defenses to play. And if they don't have them, DPS just pull anyways, which can end up to a tank dying since they didn't have any cooldowns left. And then they just insult the tanks, so they leave. Same goes for healer. While you have some stupidly nasty overlaps on certain bosses or fights, you just added extra stuff to deal with, being it by dispelling or just moving non-stop that healers have to do while also pushing 1.5 mil HPS even on keys below +10. Meaning DPS just 360 bunny hop their rotation and the healer needs to do 4 things at the same time, and God forbid you overlook a dispel that will potentially wipe the party if you don't deal with it. The changes, as you did them now, are quite bad and only force tanks or healers into playing DPS or Orc Evoker instead, because it's simply not even a fraction of the stress those two roles have to deal with. That's why I mentioned that the one-shot mechanics should be applied to lower keys too. Make them DPS players be more mindful and perceptive of pulls early on. If they stand in stuff, let them die. I recently played a Resto Druid for a few weeks, and after playing Mistweaver before all the good buffs, Preservation when it was the least played healer, and Disc and Dragonflight, this is by far the worst experience I've ever had during a puck adventure, as I was losing my mind so often that I can't even imagine how this would be for a completely new player. If we take all of that I just said and sum it up, what I was trying to say is, the difficulty of Mythic Plus is totally fine, but the reward for that input of time and commitment isn't there. Now, I can sit here and just complain about it, or I could make some suggestions, and that's what I'ma do. In order to incentivize doing those dead key levels of 5, 6 and 9, I'd simply adjust the reward without making them mandatory. How? Well, let's see. I personally would add a third item in +5 keys when completing the dungeon. Meaning instead of 2, you get 3. Considering this is only champion gear, I don't see how this could harm the gearing process at all. And it will push old players to potentially do a 5 over a 4, just for some more loot in general. For 6, I'd stay with the third item and also adjust the amount of Rune Crest you get to 18 for a completion. That way, Rune Crest farmers only need to play 2 keys instead of 3 to get the equal amount of crests. Considering those are time gated in the beginning of the season, This ain't gonna have an impact on player power at all early on, but maybe increase the activity in those key levels later on. Now obviously the third item will not drop after +7 since now hero is in the play. But +9 is a bit more tricky. Either you do it like in Dragonflight, where you simply put the myth track item in the vault as a reward, or also just increase the amount of gilded quests you get to 18, which then means alts or geared characters only need to do 5 of those to craft themselves a new item, since you were so keen on upping the quests required to 90 for a craft this season. Speaking of, remove the shameful amount of 5 quests for an untimed run please. This just oozes, this is not worth my time, and it's probably a good reason why people dip keys quickly if it doesn't look too good early on. I don't think that putting a myth track in the vault for completing a +9 key is too easy, considering everyone can just buy themselves +10 boost if they just swipe hard enough. And with the second segue in under a minute, speaking of buying, increase the gold you get for Mythic Plus. 50 gold that doesn't even scale in difficulty is borderline disrespectful. It feels so bad. You might as well just put the milk or the empty box of 6 in there that my father was pretending to buy just to show me that he actually did get them and then left anyways. Hell, you get triple the amount if you queue for a heroic dungeon, and that doesn't even include potential green items you can sell or just raw gold looted. Do I really need to do the math here? Either make it a couple of hundreds, make it scaling, or put consumables in that, similar to those for Battlegrounds, are only usable during Mythic Plus. Speaking of only usable during Mythic Plus, man, I'm killing these segues today. Why is there no such thing as Mythic Plus talents? PvP has those. Why Mythic Plus doesn't? And I'm not talking about some new fancy roundhouse kick ability that does 4 mil damage and says every time it hits. I'm talking about very minor adjustments in utility. For example, why, for the love of God, can't a priest just choose to have a combat res? They are the Mac daddies of healing. Anduin can do it, why can't they? Why can't a druid choose to have a master spell kind of thing, considering you nerfed the actual master spell to the ground anyways? Or why can't priests choose to make their master spell a mass poison removal, or even a mass decurse? Just minor things that would make certain classes more powerful, as they can add a little bit extra to their offensive without being borderline broken. And how do we know what's borderline broken utility wise? Just look at Resto Shamans. They got stuns, knockups, kicks. Hell, they had kicks before any other healer did. AFK healing totems that pump HPS like hell, healing rain that also does some mad damage just passively, Polywhite damage reduction, an AoE poison cleanse damage reduction totem, healing through damage, castable by moving, and so on. You know what Resto Druids got? A 20% bear form uptime during dungeons, cause otherwise they die on everything that just slightly look in their direction. Now, I'm not saying nerf Shaman, I'm just saying give others also a chance to adjust their stuff. And just so you don't have to deal with extra balancing in raids and PvP, make them Mythic Plus talents. And again, similar to Drake, we are talking minor things here, allegedly. For example, a warrior may could choose between a stronger battle shout, or maybe a weaker version of the monk's physical damage taken on targets. Ain't no way in hell that will be so impactful that it's meta all of a sudden. I'm pretty sure you get what I mean. And before I cry myself to sleep, I just want to say something that is more or less from a personal note, since I don't know how others feel about this at all. Dear Blizzard, MDI is f***ing boring. In what damn world do you think it's fun to see overgeared no-lifers perform a sub 10-minute run on the +9 key that they themselves surely timed in the first week of the season with their live RAM characters? The only thing you do is spread misleading ideas of those Muppet gamers watching those polls and think, oh, I can do that too. Which just eventually breaks my key, cause some flavor of the month potpala thinks they're Yoda's daddy all of a sudden. Not even to mention that putting them into a tournament realm with fully decked out characters is hypocritical enough because you clearly don't even trust in your own gearing process to take live characters. So you provide an all-you-can loot buffet for them. Make them play with their live characters or heavily adjust their difficulty during MDI, because while people are timing +17 keys, I don't want to see a world elite of Mythic Plus gamers play keys that I can time with my 5th character already, while having a full-time job. Use your brain. I'd rather see some nail-biter matchups that go for 30 minutes instead of some boring-ass 8-minute perfect runs, which happens 5 times each stream. Also make some rules and adjustments so players have to swap their characters, so we don't see the same garbage mirror matchup 90% of the time, where the only difference is a Disc Priest or a Resto Druid. Mix things up. Make them sweat. Make them adjust. Those are the best dungeon gamers we have, and yet all they do is missionary position, gameplay-wise. You don't need to be Steve Harvey to make this an interesting format. Also, never put it in a Mythic Plus solo queue, please. Worst idea ever. You saw what happened to PvP solo queue. I do not want to be queued with 2 hunters and a rogue in a +10 key. I would lose my mind. With that, thank you for listening. Until I catch you in the next one, peace.